And welcome to another edition of Success Talk. I'm Deborah Shariff. Thanks so much for streaming in. Today's guest has suffered a miscarriage in justice. Let me share with you his story. On November 10th, 2020, James Watson was exonerated of the murder of a taxi driver in 1979 in Boston, Massachusetts. His case stands as an example of how uneven the justice system can work. Watson was only 20 years old when he and Frederick Clay, who was just 16, were arrested for the murder. Both were convicted, largely based on the testimony from a mistaken eyewitness whose memory has been enhanced by hypnosis. Both were convicted in 1981 and both were sentenced to life in prison without parole. His case was more complicated because Watson's girlfriend had testified that he admitted in the involvement in the crime. It was not until she recanted and DNA testing was conducted that the CIU agreed that Watson should be released and his case dismissed on November 10th, 2020. I am just thrilled to bring James Watson, along with his fiancee, who is a good friend and colleague of mine, Linda Solomon. Welcome.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for
Thank you.
having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Your story is so, I don't know, it's just something that we hear constantly in the Black community. Number one, of Black and brown people going to jail for crimes that they haven't committed. James, please share your story with us.
Well, I was 20 years old, living in the projects of Rosendale, city of Boston. And one morning, detectives came to my door, knocked on my door, and asked, looking for sight and sound, because something had happened outside my building. We said we didn't hear anything. We didn't hear no noise, no arguing, no shouting, no shootings, no gunshots. And they said, okay, and they left. And then they came back again and wanted me to go down to the station, bring me down to the police station for questioning. I went down to questioning on Saturday. They questioned me. Same questions, like this time is a little enhanced, like where were you? I was asleep. And what time are you talking? 4 o'clock in the morning. No, 4 o'clock in the morning, I was asleep at 6 Brookway Terrace. He said, okay, you can leave. Right. I left. Sunday, they had me back down to police station for questioning again. I answered the same questions. Where were you? And I told you I was home asleep. And then the detective got a little aggressive by asking, what happened? Was it the robbery gone wrong? Somebody panicked. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Panic, robbery. I didn't do no robbery. I don't know who talking about panic. I was not there. You know. He said,
James,
"Oh,
just a question. How did they happen to think that you committed this crime? How did that come about?
being black, living in Rosendale, section of Boston, racist police, you know, singing out, see the poor black guy, we got to get somebody, so we ain't got to do no work, so let's get him." And that's exactly what they did. They didn't want to do a thorough investigation to get the correct corporates or even look for the correct perpetrators. They just focused on me. So I turned around. I said, "Well, I'm getting tired of you keep coming at me. With this. I said, what do you want? You know, what do you want? I what? I'll take a polygraph. He asked did I want to take a polygraph, and I said yes, polygraph, whatever. You know what I mean?
So, what was the outcome of the polygraph?
I know. Well, the polygraph, They said, well, we'll come by because we're busy. We'll come by and we'll pick you up Monday and we'll take you in for a polygraph. I said, cool. But before that, before that, when I was down the police station, District 13, on a Sunday evening, you know what I mean? They said, you want to do this? I said, I want to do this, you know what I mean? Because I didn't do nothing wrong. He said, we'll pick you up Monday. Okay. Monday came, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They're supposed to take me in, do the polygraph, and be done with it. Monday came, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, no show. So we decided to take the kids out. I guess we was going to do some shopping. So we was all going shopping. You know, me and my girlfriend at the time, her mother, you know, her father, sister, and brother. We just all go out, do a little shopping. As I was left the building to go get in the car, we all get in the car, I noticed a black Chevy Impala across the street from where my entrance of coming out of the apartment building. And that was kind of a dark area, but you can see it because it's right in front of the house. I didn't see anybody in the car. I mean, so I walked over to the car, walked over to the parking lot, and I was the last one to get in. I had my son in my arms. I just had a son. You know, he was 13 months old, Don Juan Moses. And I started to get into the car, and just as I got in, I heard somebody yell my name, Watson. And I stop, I come back out the car, and I turn around. It's Detective Earlo. You know, so I said, all right. So I walked over to him, and I had my son in my arms. My girlfriend was aggravated. You know, like why? You know, I mean, why why you keep harassing him? You know, he told you he didn't do nothing. You know? Okay. I said, what happened to you at 1 o'clock for the polygraph? He said something came up. Okay, whatever. You know, he said, well, you come down to the station now? And I told him, no, I'm not going down to the station now. I'm about to with my family. We better go do a little shopping. You know what I mean? You didn't show up. You know, we can do this another time. And then again, he got a little aggressive. He said, no, I want you down the station now.
Mm.
Now, remind you, he didn't handcuff me, anything. So I'm thinking, well, you know, he's getting agitated. So I said, I told my people, my girl, the father, and them, I said, drive down to the station with me, you know. And then he said, you know, we'll bring you back. You know, I said, no, just follow me down the station. From there, we'll leave and we'll go do a little shopping. We get down to District 13, and everybody's inside, outside the detective's office, which is on the first floor. They're outside the door. I'm in the office with two detectives, Detective Burlow and Detective what's his last was it Paul Carroll. All right, so I'm sitting at the desk. Detective Burlow's in front of me. Detective Paul Carroll is on the other end of the office. It's a small office, and he's standing in the window. It's an old police station where the windowsill is practically to the floor. It's got them antique windows, like church windows. So I'm sitting there. I'll say, okay. And he said, you know, you know what I mean? What happened? I said, well, what do you mean what happened? I said, I'm here for a polygraph. I mean, what's happened? You know, what happened? You know what I mean? Who pulled the trigger? You know, what? You know what I mean? You know, what is it, robbery go bad? I said, we're not going to do this anymore. I come take a polygraph test. Now I'm getting agitated. Now, as I sit in my chair, he's sitting across from me, in front of his desk, and his chair's facing me, and I'm facing him. He's not in his desk. He's sitting beside the desk in the front. I'm across from him. And so I look down beside my chair. There's a garbage pail, you know, office garbage pail, tin green barrel. And I looked in it, you know, and there's a 38 revolver laying in it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I'm saying to myself, wow, you know what I mean? I know it ain't the way you throw your weapons away. I'm saying this to myself. Yeah, I know what time it is. I know exactly what they're trying to do. You know what I mean?
James, I don't mean to interrupt, but do you think at that point, because you were only 20, you should have had legal representation and maybe you shouldn't have been talking to any of them?
Right. Well, yeah, at the time I was kind of like naive. I didn't ask for a lawyer, anything like that, because I figured in my own mind, right, and heart that it's just a mistake. You know, it'll probably just boil down, and you know, and they're just trying to scare me to see if I would say, yeah, okay, something went wrong. What I mean? It wasn't me. What I mean? I only did this or I didn't do that. But what I mean? That wasn't the case. I was not there. You know, and then I thought when I was downtown at 4 o'clock in the morning under
But
the
just for some of the viewers that are watching, if they happen to, if that same thing happens to them, would you recommend that you don't say anything and ask for a lawyer?
Yes, I wouldn't say one word. Right off the bat, don't say nothing. I want my lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean? And if you're under 20, 18, 17, I want my parents here. They cannot question you without your parent. If they do, it's illegal. What I mean?
Gotcha.
The statement is no good. Uh,
Gotcha.
uh, so whatever you do, you ever get arrested, off the rip, I want to see my lawyer. I mean? If you're a juvenile, I want my mother, I want my father, who's taking care of you, whoever you live with,
Mhm.
what I mean, who has custody of you, that's supposed to be there with you. Aunt, uncle, stepmother, stepfather, step grandmother, whoever. If you're in a DYS or if you're in a program, I mean, they have to notify your parents and they have to come down there and sit with you. They can't ask you no questions. Questions stop. And if they don't stop, you're asking the questions, they're in violation of your constitutional right.
Absolutely. And I don't want to go fast forward, but one question that is burning that I wanted to ask you, and when I think of being incarcerated for 42 years on a,
41,
how many?
41 years.
Oh, 41 years. I can't imagine what it was like. Of course I can't imagine, but what was it like, James? And how did you keep your sanity? And now we're looking at you right now and you got your fiance next to you. I mean, this is definitely, that's why you're on Success Talk, because this is definitely a successful ending. Um, can you share with me what it was like and how did you have the courage and strength to actually fight your case?
Well, I didn't fight it. I didn't fight it immediately. Start fighting it, because it took a long time for us to get to trial. It took about 2 years, 23 months to get to trial. You know what I mean? Because the DA asked in my arraignment, the DA asked for the death penalty,
Oh,
and the judge granted it.
oh,
So we had to fight the death penalty statute before I even go to trial. Because if they would have brought it back, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you doing this interview. But successfully, we won. I was the poster boy for the death penalty.
hmm. Linda, when you hear these words, what goes through you? That just hit me when he said that he got the death penalty and it came from a judge. How does that make you feel? And when you say that, when you respond, I also want to hear about how you met James, etc. I'm sure the streamers are interested as well.
Well, James and I grew up in Rosendale, um, in Archdale Projects, and James was a friend of my brother's. Um, so he knew my mother, father, brothers, and my sister, um, and so that's how we knew each other. Um, and what do I think of when I think about James being the poster child for the death penalty? I I'm just speechless because I'm just speechless, and it makes me wonder how many people were wrongly convicted, like James, who were not fortunate enough to be exonerated.
Absolutely.
I think it was a travesty, the whole thing. Um, but I think what happened to James is not uncommon, especially back then. They picked someone, and how many others did this happen to?
Absolutely. And I know that, James, there was another gentleman that was with you. Can you share that story? And he was about 4 years younger than you were.
Yes, he was 16, Frederick Clay. Yes.
Mm,
I didn't know he was even arrested for the charges. I thought it was only me being arrested for the charges until after that was after they took me in after he told me, he said, well, you've been identified. You know, as you've been identified. Been identified by who? You've been identified. Stand up. If I stood up, he cuffed me up and took me in for being to be booked. And then after I went in up in Charles Street Jail, that's when I realized they had arrested Freddie, a 16-year-old guy from Rosendale who I knew.
mhm,
He didn't live too far from where I live. And he came down from the guardroom floor after being booked into Charles Street Jail. He came downstairs. I was downstairs playing cards, and he walked up behind me. He said, "What's up, Jimmy?" I said, "Hey, what's up, Fred?" I said, "What you done did?" He said, "I did the same thing you did." They said, "No." They said, "They charged me for the same thing that what you did." I said, "What you mean? What for, charged you for?" They said, "I was with you. And you was with me. That we killed the cab driver." What?
mm,
Yeah. And they said that he shot the guy. He was only 16 years old.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? He was in like a foster home at the
mm,
time, where the woman who was caring for the boys that in a foster home had a key that we can only lock you from the outside. You can lock you in, and you need a key to get out at night. And she sleeps with a key.
mm,
He had an alibi. She testified that he was there, and they still locked him up, and they gave him natural life.
mm.
You see, you just had to be black and unfortunate. That was it.
Black,
And I mean,
white.
that's the same as today is what's happening. I sort of wanted to talk about the fact that the taxi driver that was murdered, I understand that his family had something to do with you, James,
Yes.
actually being released. Can you talk to us about that? That's something that is huge.
Well, after a while, after I spent uh, 35 years in prison, we reached out to family after they read the evidence because I had two trials. And that's what made it
Mhm,
really possible. I was convicted in 81. I overturned my case in 83.
Hmm.
Got a new trial. Went back to Charles Street, and 10 months later, they convicted me again and sent me back.
Now, say with no evidence,
And with the
with
evidence,
no fingerprints, no evidence other
nothing,
than
nothing, nothing. Uh,
a faulty
uh, be-
eyewitness.
yes, of a hypnotized cab driver. But anyway, uh, Freddie, Freddie came into the picture, and I mean, we talked with Freddie. You know. Could you repeat
And
the question?
no,
Yes,
your
because
Right.
detective connected with the family
oh
members,
yes,
right?
yes, with the family members, yeah, because when I go back into this, it still kind of bother me. But yeah, uh, my lawyers got in touch with the family members, and they started reading the evidence, and they seen what they had, and they see what the DA did, you know. So they turned around and they wrote a letter, because my health was kind of bad when I was in prison. I mean, so and that's when COVID came in.
Mm,
So, so, so for me, and since there was evidence of possible miscarriage of justice, they filed a motion for my release. So I got letters from friends, family, people who knew me, and everything. And then out of the blue, the family Bohansians, hope I'm pronouncing their name right, wrote a letter to the court saying, yes, we truly believe this man did not kill my brother and that he should be released.
Was that evidence that they got from from your detective?
Yes, yes, Mr. John Nazi was the detective in my case. Good gentleman. And he did a thorough investigation with Barbara Monroe and Maddie Blodgett. They
So
did a
you
very
had a
good job.
support system, James. You had a
Yes, I
whole
did.
support
A
system.
marvelous.
The murdered cab driver's family was rooting for you to get out. You had an investigator on your
Yes,
side and you had attorneys. But
yes.
how did you manage to resource all that? Because I know if somebody is listening or if they're watching this program right now, they're probably saying, well, whoa, how did James get all these resources available to him?
I could, well, as I was working on my case, me and Freddie was in the same prison, and I would turn around and go to the law library every day, every day. I slept there almost. Well, literally, I did fall asleep in there, but every day I'd be in the law library. Freddie be in the law library, and somebody said, "Well, you should." They call me Slim in there in the joint. He said, "Slim, why don't you get in contact with the Innocent Project?"
Mm.
I said, "Wow. Well, I've been messed up quite a few times. I'm not too keen on me riding with another attorney. I got burnt twice. So I was thinking about just going there and do it myself." He said he should contact him. I contacted him. I sent my application in. They wrote me back and said yes.
We'll take your case.
We'll take your case based on what they've read and heard. What the little bit that I had, and they put together and they started an investigation, and that's how we found that the DA had withheld exculpatory evidence, which is evidence that wasn't disclosed to the jury.
You know
And
what is
hmm?
Go on. I'm sorry. Keep going, James. I
The
apologize.
evidence that was not disclosed to the jury. The
Hmm.
evidence was the DA had went and found a so-called quote specialist on hypnosis. And he wanted the hypnosis to come in, but the individual he asked declined to do so. He said, "I'm not going to do that. I can't do that." You know, and he knows it was wrong, so he declined. And now, when I went to trial, I still got convicted though. I went to trial,
Mm.
but this evidence he asked him to use was hidden in his file. It wasn't turned over to me, my lawyer, you know, or to the Innocent Project, who was run
Well,
by
why,
Lisa.
why do they do? I'm sorry, but I'm having a hard time. Why do they intentionally do this and they hide evidence, knowing that you were innocent and that a judge had just mentioned that they was going to give you the death penalty, and this man is hiding? What is going on in their heads, and how much hatred do these prosecutors have or these DAs have for us as Black people? It just enrages me.
Yes, it's well, the DA he comes in there and he says he's here to represent the Commonwealth. You know what I mean? And now he's representing the Commonwealth, but I think he takes it on now, in my personal opinion, as a sport. You know what I mean? How many blacks you can lock up? And I happen to put me in that pool. So when I went to trial, you know what I mean? It took him a while to bring me to trial, right, in my first trial. And the judge specifically asked this DA, Tim O'Neill, right? And what his name out there, Tim O'Neill, asked him, you know what I mean, what took you so long, Mr. O'Neill, to bring Mr. Clay Watson to trial?
Mm.
Because we almost spent 2 years in there, 23 months or some change. He said, you know what I mean, they was in there for 2 years, Your Honor. The judge said, no, almost 2 years. And the judge says, well, if you didn't bring these men to trial today, you would have to get off the case and turn the case over to another DA. He said, that's correct. And you know what he said to the judge? He said, this is my last case. I'm retiring. He went into private practice.
Mm.
So that's like this is supposed to be in his last nudge in his belt.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Of locking up another black man and a black kid. You know what I mean? So he said, and then they proceeded to trial.
Can I say that 70% of exonerated men and women are exonerated because of prosecutorial misconduct. They So what happened to James was not a mistake. They knew exactly what they were doing. No, there was no mistake with this. And they were so blatant as to leave evidence in the files. And I believe that it just speaks to the fact that what they were doing, railroading these young men of color, was just commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
Why no one cares to take a look at all of Tim O'Neill's cases is
Mm-hmm.
beyond me. Well, it's not. We know what it's about, right? It's racism, blatant racism, but it's prosecutorial misconduct.
Well,
And because they have qualifying immunity, even though we know that the district attorney withheld information intentionally, right? They harassed his girlfriend at the time, and they moved her out of state. First, they harassed her and convinced her, persuaded her to lie, and then they moved her out of state with her two children until 3 children until the court date, so that no one could get to her before. And I have to say that she never recanted. She talked to her daughter about the fact that she lied. It was her daughter who came forward. She never admitted to lying.
wow.
No, she
Wow.
would. She would. She would. Yeah, she would. She would. She held on to the lie like she was Tim O'Neill's sister or something.
Mm.
Something like they were related. She never recanted her statement. I mean,
Well,
but she
James.
did. But she did recant it to her daughter. Her daughter turned around and asked her,
Mm-hmm.
Did Jimmy do this?" And she told her daughter no.
Mm.
And she said, "Well, Mom, won't you go to the people and tell them that?"
Mm.
You know. And she said no.
Yeah.
You know, because they threatened to take her kid. This is what they did. They threatened to take. They told her they'd take her kids from her. One,
Mm.
take all the kids from her. Two, give her 7 years in Framingham. Three, and cut her off public aid if she tried to give me an alibi.
They were after you. That was so intentional. And it's, I can say it. It was pure evil. That's all I can say. It was just pure evil. Well, your story doesn't end there. Being exonerated is a blessing. And I know that you
Yes.
cherish every day that,
Oh, yes,
that
I
you
do.
are free. And we're going to show that clip in a minute. But one of the things about your story that I just absolutely love, and of course Linda, your fiance, is a good friend of mine, so she shares some information with me that you have not that you have not stopped there, both of you, because of your experience, James, being incarcerated and then being exonerated. You all are starting an organization to help others that might go through it. And James, I know that your son, because of you being absent, that has been a really hard thing for you and him to develop that relationship. And I think that might be one of the motivations for you all to start this organization. But talk to us about this organization that you're starting, to help other families that might actually experience the same hardship of what you went through, James.
Yes, with the organization that we begin to start up is called Confronting Injustice, where people who have been wrongly convicted, who are or right now we speak waiting to be convicted on prosecutorial misconduct, detective police misconduct, fabricating evidence, building a case against an innocent man and removing him from his home for no apparent reason for the simple fact that he's black and poor. I mean, and that's why we said this, enough's enough. Enough's enough. I mean, and now since that I came out, turn around there, I'm dedicating my life to this. You know what I mean, to this program. And once it gets off the ground, anybody who is waiting to get trial or been accused of a crime or have any evidence of factual evidence or circumstantial evidence of detective misconduct, police misconduct, prosecutor misconduct, step forward. You know what I mean? There's somebody out here that's willing to help.
Now I know it's in the embryonic
The
stage.
the, um, the exoneration network,
I
innocent
know
project.
it's James. I know it's in, and Linda. I know it's in the embryonic stages. But is there any sort of contact information that you can provide for for anybody who's watching? They might say, "Hey, I certainly know somebody that could use this type of service? Do you have an email or something that they could actually contact you?
Yes.
Yes, I have, but I don't have it with me, which is my, yes, I do.
Just give me your email address.
Okay, yes, give me my, you got my email address,
It's
Okay.
JJ
JJ.
Watson.
Wait, you know what I can do? I can actually add this right now. So tell me
Okay.
what it is.
JJ
Wait a minute.
WAT
Wait a minute. JJ.
WATSON
Yes.
Mhm.
0403
Is it
at
a zero or zero? O.
GON Watson 0403 at gmail.com.
Okay, let me just. I have JJ Watson, and then I have O. Can you back up? I'm sorry.
0403
Okay, 0403 at
at
gmail.com.
gmail.com. Mm-hmm.
All right, let me. I want you all to look at it and make sure it's correct before I show it. I just want to make sure, and I'm going to add it. And oops, showed the wrong one. Let me show this.
Okay.
Okay, tell me if that's right.
The zero is in front of the four should be a zero.
Okay, let me change it.
That's
I'm
okay.
so sorry. Bear with me, just in case if people are watching and they're interested. And actually, let me add it here. Okay, so you're saying that. Wait a minute. Let me edit. Sorry, it's taken so long, but I know people
No
are probably
problem.
are
No problem.
interested in seeing this. So let me go back. I have Watson. Now tell me from the when you say zero, is it a zero
The
or is
number
it
zero. The number zero.
oh, it is
Yeah.
zero. Okay. So Watson 0.
403 at gmail.com.
Great. Okay, I thought that's what I had. Okay. Let's see.
You had the letter zero instead of the number zero.
Oh, okay. You know what I just did? Oh, goodness. I'm sorry. Let me do that one more time. Did it
Well, while
leave?
you're doing that, I can say that for people who are innocent, they
Mhm.
they they do their time differently, right? It is a travesty what happened to James and other people, and something that we don't talk a lot about is the fact that James had a son who was 13 months when he went to jail. By
Yes.
them wrongfully snatching him up, they didn't afford his son the opportunity to have a dad. He didn't have the opportunity to have someone to protect him. And as a result, he had a life that was just steeped with, I mean, unthinkable things. And he's in Don Juan is not the only person who
Suffered.
who suffered. Like children of these wrongfully convicted suffer as well, and someone should be held accountable for that. Someone should
Yes.
be held accountable for that. And it's not even like you can undo the damage, but or undo the harm. But we've talked to many people who are adults now who have horror stories because
Mhm.
they didn't have the opportunity to have a parent right there to take care of them.
Mhm. That's true. And they need support systems. Linda, I just put that up, and I just want to see, in fact, if it's still correct. I hope it is. If it
Yes.
isn't, just correct it online. But it's jjwatson0403 at gmail.com.
Yes.
Okay, that's correct. So if you are interested, Linda and James, I'm so excited about the fact that they are doing something about it. And what they are doing is they're interested in making sure that another family doesn't go through what James and his family went through. So if you do have an interest, their organization is called Confronting Injustice. And the email to get a hold of James is jjwatson0403 at gmail.com. For a happy ending, I want to show this clip
But
of
before we do that, Deb, can I add
sure.
something? One of the things that we're doing this month is hosting a free Zoom gathering, and the topic is post-incarceration syndrome and steps towards healing. And we're doing that because for a number of reasons, but one, because people who spend time in jail, especially a significant amount of time in jail, develop symptoms that are not healthy, that impact the individual as well as his loved ones and friends. Um, and and we need to be talking about that. And so we're hosting this gathering on the 30th of November. And if people are interested in attending or just hearing more information about post incarceration syndrome, we would love to have you.
Awesome. That is so incredibly important. You know, it's one thing. I mean, I think I shared with you that I had a brother. By the way, James, my brother knows who you are, and he said his name, I guess his nickname, in when he was incarcerated was Smoke.
Yes, yes,
Was
yes.
Smoke. I said, "What was your that?" So that's my brother, by the way. So he said, "Oh, I know James," because when I actually circulated the flyer, he said, "Oh my goodness, I know him." So, etc. But on a happy note, let's just watch this short clip, and let's bring some happiness to this particular program. Again, it's Success Talk. I'm Deborah Shariff, and we are talking with James Watson and his fiancee, Linda Solomon. All right, I
Mhm.
started it from the beginning. I want to make sure it's from the beginning. I might even loop it so people can see it, but check this out.
Okay.
Oh, it ends so abruptly. I'm so sorry.
That's
But
okay.
that was tell us about that day, James. And I see that big
That
smile.
was the happiest day of my life. That was the happiest day of my life. That's something that I dreamed about, something I prayed about
Mhm.
so often. It was like almost every day.
Yes,
I just asked for one more shot. Just give me one more shot to prove that these people were wrong, that they made a terrible, terrible mistake,
Mhm.
which turned out to be not as a mistake. It was deliberate. It
exactly.
was a deliberate act.
And it's
Everybody in who had a party in my being incarcerated for the rest of my life and subject to the death penalty, right, deliberately set this in motion. And I mean, and to walk out that door, I mean, I mean, it,
it was
Bob and Maddie.
it was
yes, with Barbara and Maddie, my attorneys, it was, I thought it was a dream. Yeah,
yeah. It
I
was
thought it was
like
a
they
dream.
were angels, right?
Yes, they is, and that's who she is.
After
Barbara's a
confronting
lone angel.
exactly. After confronting evil, it was so good to see angels, wasn't it? And to
Yes, it
have them
was.
support
Yes,
you.
it was.
And
Yes,
for
it
those,
was.
yes, and I just want to bring up this email address again. If you are confronting any type of injustice, James and Linda are here to help. They're starting a new organization, which is called Confronting Injustice. And it's jjwatson0403 at gmail.com. And if you, just in case, if you are interested, you can also, for further information, you can email me at successtalk with Deborah Shariff at gmail.com. So, any closing, if you have any closing remarks for the public, James or Linda, please share.
Yes, I have one thing that I definitely want people to know, right, is the Innocent Project,
The New England.
the New England Innocent Project. I mean, they're there, and they are angels. I think, you know, if you were wrongly convicted of a crime that you did not commit, contact them. And if you need more information, contact me at jjwatson0403@gmail.com.
Can I
Awesome.
say that the Innocent Project is not only concerned about getting men and women out, but they also have an exonerating network. And so they're concerned with helping men and women who get out because this is women convicted wrongly, just the prevalence is just as great, which is unfortunate. But my parting word would be don't give up hope. It
Mhm.
may seem hopeless. I know
No,
James and Freddie thought their case was hopeless. You just cannot give up hope. Just
Absolutely.
do not give up. It gets greater later.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I,
Greater,
yes, it gets better later. Or what was that? Gets greater.
greater.
greater later.
Oh, I like that. I like that. And I just want to let my streamers know that I am working with James and Linda because I know that the population of Black people, when you think about incarceration, I know that there are many Black and brown men and women who, and actually, and I just shouldn't say Black and brown, also there are white uh,
Absolutely.
Yes.
inmates that are wrongly convicted, and they are a part of James and Linda's network. So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
Yes.
so I,
Right.
I
Ted,
just want to, you sure? Hmm.
let me tell you, one of our very dear friends is his name is Paul Robinson. He spent 51 years in jail for a murder he did not commit. The person who committed the murder, they know who did it, but he spent 51 years and he just got out like 3 months ago, and he's part of Confronting Injustice too. It's the prevalence of wrongful convictions is clearly steeped in the direction of Black and brown men. But if
Hmm.
you're poor and you're white, or you're poor and you're Asian, or anything, I mean,
Any
that's
ethnic
a
group. Any
that's a
ethnic group.
consideration as well.
Oh, goodness.
Injustice applies to every walking human being on this planet. I mean,
Absolutely.
every
Absolutely.
walking being on this planet. And please do whatever you do, fight. Do not give up. Do not give
Exactly.
up. Do not let them win.
Absolutely. And if you want to see, if you missed this live, if you're watching it and you say, hey, I want my friends to check it out, just, Deborah Shariff, YouTube, subscribe. Just look me up on Success Talk and please subscribe so I can bring you more stories that are just like this. So I want to, at this point, I'm trying to get used to this. There you go. At this point, I want to thank both of you, James and Linda, for being a part of
Absolutely.
Success Talk. And I will do again, um, bring you back on the show when confronting injustice becomes a reality, or if there's any other messages that you want to give the streamers out there, because I know this information is so valuable. But thank you
Absolutely.
so much for being a
Thank
part of
you.
this
You're
show.
welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you, streamers, for checking us out. Until next time, take care, everybody.
Take care.